My ex is finally getting what he deserves. I got married when I was 18 to my high school sweetheart. Stupid. But unfortunately, I didn't have anyone to support me, or warn me, or make me understand I didn't have to do it. I'm from the Bible Belt, and my parents really didn't want me leaving for college in another state. I learned there is more to life than this horrible place. So they begged and finagled and coerced me into going to college locally, and they would pay for an apartment for me and my boyfriend if we got married. Because who could withstand the scandal of me shacking up with my beef eye roll? NJ thy, so, finally, I just gave in. Now let me explain, for those of you who do not have religious trauma from being beat to death your whole childhood with evangelical BS, eventually they just wear you down and you don't care anymore. I told them I didn't care about having a wedding, I just wanted to go to the courthouse. No, this upset the cousins, so I agreed to let them do whatever. So my mom and her friends and relatives plan it, we get married. I had been 18 for 5 days. We move into a small off-campus apartment, and immediately things change. Within a day and a half, he's completely stopped acknowledging me. Wouldn't even answer if I asked him a question. He spent the bulk of our honeymoon time sitting at a computer desk, downloading porn. It was 2001, so that was still a thing you had to do. So I was married, whole-ass married, all the way, legally married, and 2 days in discovering that this was very, very wrong. And the thing about situations like this, where everyone around you is wrapped up in this church nonsense, is you have no one to talk to about it. I had no one to support me. If I had left, I would have had nowhere to go. Also, I had never seen a happy married couple, and I cannot stress the importance of this enough, but for those of us raised by boomers, I think you will understand. I didn't actually know there were married people who were happy and enjoyed each other's company. My parents, also married at 18, spent their waking hours fighting, and when they weren't fighting, my grandparents were fighting. But by God, they all stayed married, even though they hated each other. These were my only examples of married life, other than TV. With no support, completely naive, and not a single person to talk to, I just got on with it. I'm not going to go into detail about our absolute nightmare of a marriage, let's just say, after our 4th child was born and he just stopped coming home from work in the evenings. I knew I was strong enough to do this. Also, I had to have a hysterectomy due to PCOS. That shit changed my life. Amazing. I started making plans. I enrolled back in college when the baby was about 9 months. I had quite a few credits I'd picked up here and there. I got a job. A good one. My mom retired from her job finally and told me she would babysit so I could afford to work. And I just started being a married single mom. Y'all know how it is. As long as I let him use my body as a receptacle once a day, he left me the fuck alone. And I know he was just forcing me to have sex with him, to feel power over me, because I knew he had to be sleeping with someone else as much as he was gone. But anyway, long story short, I finally got him packed up and parked his shit outside. And I'm not going to go into all the soul-sucking battles that resulted. Let's just say he was a narcissist, completely textbook, and he did everything you're thinking. Stalk me, come to my job, harass me, threaten me, call me a couple hundred times a day. Absolute nightmare. But I kept me and the kids safe. There was a light at the end of the tunnel, but I say this just to give you an idea of what was happening. 0.5 days after I kicked him out, he publicly stepped out with his new girlfriend, and they were both posting on social media. And I'm saying this sarcastically, ... It was obvious she was not new. This was not a new relationship, lol. It was so pathetic I was embarrassed for him. Ugh. His mom even called me seriously upset and embarrassed by it. Asking me if I knew? Yeah, obviously. Remember when you asked me why I kicked him out a few says ago? Things clearing up? Oh, did I mention he was a high school teacher? Yeah, everything you're thinking is absolutely true. But when her dad is a deputy, they keep it quiet and from never hitting the papers. Now she had graduated by then. She was still 18 though. So, whatever. I weathered the storm and all of his absolute insane BS. Court dates, being sued for made-up things, still with the stalking and harassment, begging for me to let him move back home, etc. He even asked me for sex once, from the other side of the door I had him locked out of. Bro, I won't even let you in the house. You think I'm going to let you in my pants? Repulsive. Anyway, now I did. In one awkward interaction at a pickup. Tell her that she needed to get away from him. She was 18, She had her whole life ahead of her. I would even help her. Please don't be in a relationship with this man. He would change her. She acted like you would think. Eye rolls and condescension. Thinks she's the one. But she was an 18-year-old victim who had been groomed. What could I do? I warned her. She didn't listen. I felt sorry for her, but I did my part. In time, I meet my second husband. He's wonderful. Did the work and shows my kids a loving example every day. This also really set me back because being treated well is a sure way to make someone realize just how badly they have been treated in the past. We started healing and stuck it out through all the visitation sham, about a year and a half. He didn't want the kids, didn't care about them, didn't even like them. He just took them to irritate me. Anything he could do to hurt me, he did. But I digress. About 2 years in, approximately, his GF got pregnant and they had a baby. Thankfully, he stopped demanding the visitations that he clearly didn't want, citing the baby, and we were all so relieved. Oh my gosh, it was so good. They did continue to go sporadically for a couple years, maybe once every 2 or 3 months, for a weekend. They loved their little brother and enjoyed playing with him, thought he was the best. And I want to add in here, I didn't talk shit about him around them when they were little. Never. I didn't say shit about his GF, just, oh, that's awesome. Maybe you guys can paint your nails and she knows some cool things to teach you. I bought gifts for the baby. I even gave him the things we had used, swing, things like that, so they wouldn't have to buy them. If there are any divorced dads out there, please save your bitter baby mama. You probably taught them to hate him. BS. Anything my kids feel towards him, he earned in person. Now, after X's child was born, he got a vasectomy. I don't know any details, and I only know this because I said something to my oldest one day about when was he getting another little brother or sister, and he said he wasn't. His uncle and his dad had rode together to the clinic and had vasectomies. They'd been joking about it at their grandparents'. Life goes on. We made it through COVID. I'm talking it's been 11 years since all this. I've got 2 adults, a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old. They don't deal with their father or his wife. They all tried to video chat, call, and FaceTime their little brother to keep a relationship with him, but due to their dad pushing contact on them, they had to stop. And what I mean by that is, my kids all had phones. The ex would call them, and they wouldn't answer, seeing it was him, so he would use his little boy's iPad to call them. They would answer, thinking it was their brother, and then there he would be. He wouldn't stop putting them in situations like that, forcing himself on them, just like he used to do with me, and they just stopped answering. And it broke their hearts, especially my 2 oldest, who have went through a lot of guilt and tears over having to cut ties with their little bro. Lots of sadness and guilt, anger at ex for making them choose. We discussed them reaching out to ex-stepmom in a couple weeks when things settle down, and asking to reconnect with little brother and explain the circumstances about how and why they stepped back. Now, here we are in the present. A few weeks ago, we were taking my daughter and her roommate back to the college dorms, and she's flipping through FB. She squeals the squeal of someone with hot tea and says new wife changed her relationship status to divorced. Now IDK, if any of y'all have ever met a teenage girl with the internet, but in 4 minutes, she had a full history pieced together like she was on Criminal Minds, and we found out everything. Identified the new man, eyed his family, saw the new baby, and knew what they had for dinner. It had just happened. A few days before that, wife had packed up their son, took him to the hospital, and gave birth to another man's baby. New dude took her and both boys back to his house, and that was the end of it. Lucky what? I knew this would happen. I knew it would. About age 27, 29, as a woman, you're in your full glory. I did the same exact thing. When I got to 28, I knew I was able to leave that man and make it on my own. I finally had the strength and confidence. I had always said, right before she turns 30, she will leave him. Whether it be growing in maturity or just being sick of the mistreatment, it will happen. So congrats to old girl for coming out of whatever spell he worked on you and finding your strength. I'm proud of you. And also congrats on that new baby. I've never felt any ill will towards her at all. Not even once. And I could have. She was not friendly to my children. I'm sure she's a bitch. But I have always given her the benefit of the doubt and blamed it on the situation. And speaking of their age difference, one of the best things about this is what a difference 11 years made on her versus what it did to him. Where she was an immature girl, now she's a full, beautiful, experienced, sexy woman. I remember being that age. I felt perfect. My body was rocking, everything worked, and nothing hurt. Men wanted me, and I knew it. It was awesome. She's absolutely entered her era. 11 years on him? Bro is completely bald. Cue ball bald. I'm sure he shaves it, or he'd have one of those 2-inch lines of hair wrapping around his head. And thinking about this always makes me feel good. He got downright fat. Now don't take me wrong, I'm fat. I've always been plus size, and I'm perfectly real about that. But when I say he got fat, I mean he got fat. Easily doubled in size. His shoulders are so big IDK how he makes it through a door without turning sideways. It really accentuates the baldness, LOL. He's gonna have trouble recruiting the next wife, I'm afraid. And I also want to add, in true narcissist fashion, he did his best to keep her close as long as he could, so he could control the narrative. His aunt randomly sent me a message. Not that I asked or ever even speak to her. She just likes spreading gossip enthusiastically, and said, "She had a baby by some other man and it's just awful. I hate this for X. Wah." Weird take that you expect me to be sympathetic to his plight, ma'am, but I'll be polite. Which it didn't surprise me at all that they're talking like they didn't know she was pregnant. Of course he would have kept it secret from his family. He needed to keep playing happy family as long as possible. Say she's at work. Act like everything is fine. She's not around to say anything different. Them knowing she was pregnant would have meant they knew she was cheating and there were big problems. And that looks bad. Makes him look like a failure. But her just leaving the house one morning, to them, out of the blue, and giving birth to a surprise baby, and then leaving with a strange man? Shocking, dramatic, and makes him look like a victim, which is his main goal. Gotta spin that story to remain a victim. Always. Narcissists are so predictable.